Let's get some introductions going. We have here two of my long-term friends and partners. I'm so excited to be with you in this fabulous setting with Mike Reed, CEO of Gannett in USA Today.
Great to be here, Aaron. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
And then we have Christian Broughton from The Independent.
Nice to be back, yeah.
Yes, this is like your annual thing now.
Well, we were over there talking about all the disruptions that we're now going to talk about 1 year on, like a year ago, won't we? So, yeah.
And we did have one glass of rosé just to make sure that we're extra fun and open-minded. So who knows how this goes. So we're going to talk about generative AI and the transformation of the media industry. And my first question is to both of you, AI and journalism. Should we be freaked out or hopeful?
We should be hopeful. We should be hopeful if we give it to the journalists to tell us how to use it, would be my answer. So that's what we're doing a lot of. I don't think you can, journalism isn't like some kind of Victorian library. It has to move with technology. It gets better every time it moves with technology. Technology is always described as a threat. People focus far less on the opportunities that technology provides somehow in our industry. We're just kind of really fixated, I think, on the threat. Change is a good thing. Change is exciting. It allows us to find out new stuff and tell those stories to new people in more engaging ways. I mean, what's not to love about that? Sure, there are some other things going on in the industry with AI that are presenting some challenges. But if you give the technology to journalists and get them excited about it, then they can work some good stuff out. And I would much rather the journalists tell us how to use it, how to use AI in journalism, than other people, I guess. So we'll come to some of the stuff we're all collaborating on, but it comes to life when you put it in the newsroom.
Mike, what do you think? Hopeful or?
Definitely hopeful. And I wish you would have asked me the last ChatGPT search, because it was, how do I get OpenAI to pay me for my content? I broke it.
Good one. I want a picture of that question. So hopeful.
Yeah, definitely hopeful. I think there are so many ways to have our journalists become actually more consumer friendly, more audience friendly through the use of AI, which they want to do. Journalists definitely have a mindset a lot of times of, I'm going to create content that I think people should want to know. But ultimately, journalists want to they want to see their numbers. They want to see the audience engage with their content. And so the leveraging AI can make us so much more efficient in terms of how do we kind of craft that content with the journalists into something that consumers really engage with, spend time with, come back to. And that gets the journalists, I think will get the journalists more excited in their own work and their adoption of AI. And then there are just so many efficiencies you can do to make sure, if you don't want certain stories to go out of bounds or anything like that, there are so many parameters you can put around it now.
So while I have you to talk about journalists, put aside the business aspect. So let's say search traffic is challenged. Either Google kills Google and search traffic goes down, or ChatGPT kills Google and Google goes down. Let's say one of them kills themselves or the other. Put that aside for a second. What do you think is the role of a publisher? Like if you ask your team, in this new world where search traffic may be challenged, what is the role of publishers?
Yeah, our role as publishers is actually to do the work, to go out and cover the events, cover the stories, report the facts, report both sides of every story, but to actually go out and cover the news or whatever type of content they're actually creating. It's actually to do the work. And actually don't think our journalists in our newsrooms actually worry that much or think that much about search. They really don't. They're just thinking about, I'm going to do the work. I got to do investigative work. I got to tell the story, whether it's a very local story or a national story. And then I think that's where I said I think AI can help them tell the story even better. I don't think our journalists are that worried about search or where the traffic's coming from. They're just thinking about, I want to do great work. And I think the audience will end up on my site if I'm doing great work.
So we're in our 10th year since we stopped printing The Independent. So next Easter will be our 10th anniversary without paper. And back then, I went on a tour of other media companies just to kind of think, what's The Independent going to become on this journey? And I remember going to first time I've been in a production studio during broadcast TV news. And I was so excited by it. I was like you're always jealous of somebody else's, kind of cool, exciting business when you look into it. I am anyway. And I kind of looked at it and thought, wow, this is so cool. Look at all the people doing these different kinds of jobs in journalism. And I realized so many of them were just doing process stuff. They were just like manufacturing that TV program. There was very little journalism actually going on. During the time I was there was actually the report of something happening it was a suspected, is this a terror strike? Is this not a terror strike happening in Northern Europe? Just those in Belgium, I seem to remember. And I remember somebody looking up in the gallery, they were looking up our website, they were looking up the Independence report of it to work out what was going on and whether they had to interrupt the news. And I thought, God, within that room, there were a load of people not doing journalism. Journalists don't get into journalism to not do journalism, all the production stuff, all the kind of manual labor side of it. Now, if we can slicken that up, and if we can make people, if you make those reporters much more active reporting, actually going out there, getting the information, putting it into the system so that every chat GPT type process can then rewrite it and put it on theirs. But someone's got to get the information in the first place. Someone's got to work out what's going on in the world. And if AI makes us more efficient at that and allows more of our focus and our time to go on that, I think that's a good thing.
I think to follow up on that point, 100% right. Journalists want to do journalism. They want to do work. And the first instinct of the journalists, as we've introduced different AI technologies, is it's going to take my job away. And what we're really trying to do is actually allow journalists to do even more journalism and better journalism. And so there's this cultural process to go through, this training process to go through to say, hey, we're not going to cut journalists. We're not going to replace you with AI. We're actually going to allow you to do way more journalism. Now, a lot of journalists are scared to do more work too, which isn't great.
We had I interviewed Sir Martin Sorrell earlier today, and he talked about how everything is going to change. Productivity is going to change. Cost structure is going to change. Value creation is going to change. Personalization, he spoke about that. So we talked about the change. Mike, you run a 10,000 people organization at Gannett in USA Today. But just fun story. So last week, I had the honor of being invited to, Mike sent you the scheduled email, said, would you mind coming to our town hall next week? To which I thought, it's like a regular all hands, few people talking about stuff. And then I realized it's 10,000 people listening to what I have to say, which was very nerve-wracking, but it was a lot of fun. So we enjoyed it.
It was great. Thank you.
So with your big organization that you manage, how is AI reshaping the way you think about talent, about roles, future of the business? Like what do you feel is, the biggest impact of change that AI will make at your size organization?
Yeah, I think we're in the top of the first inning, to use a baseball analogy, probably with no outs, because the first thing that we're really embarking on is how do we deploy AI technology in every aspect of our business, whether it's finance or sales, marketing, journalism, whatever. How do we deploy AI everywhere? And there's an entire shift that you have to go through culturally to start to deploy that strategy. And what we're really learning is the most excited to make their jobs better through the use of AI are farther down the totem pole inside the organization. And it's their bosses and their bosses' bosses that are most scared of the technology. And so then if their bosses and their bosses' bosses are scared of the technology, the view of the employee down there is, I don't know if I want to be here because I don't know if we're going to be successful with AI. So what we really have to do is kind of reverse engineer that. And how do we get the top of our organization to be the most adept and the most use AI the most and kind of force it down? And then but I say we're in the top of the first inning, Adam, because I think that our workforce will be reshaped entirely, but it'll be reshaped in different jobs, because I think we won't lose jobs, but I think the jobs will be a lot different as we especially as we utilize AI agents that are doing work that we're doing today that AI can do.
Thank you. Kristen, you actually launched a whole new part of the Independent called Bulletin, which is an AI-powered site. So to me, that sounds like a scary decision for the team. So I'm curious if you can share some of those moments you had. Just how do you maintain brand integrity? How do you keep the mission going? When there's a lot of headache involved. And when was that? When did you launch it?
We launched that the 2nd of April. So it's very, very new. We launched it at Adweek Europe, actually. Yeah, of this year. So it's only been going around for a couple of months now. But we're getting fantastic.
So share with us, this is a safe space. We want to know everything that went through that process. Tell us everything.
Yeah, so we have two responses. We have two big strategies that are response to AI. One is Independent Studio. So one answer is to be more human. So on Independent Studio, we're doing much more kind of talent-led, personality-driven video, YouTube, podcast, newsletter, that kind of thing. And the other strategy is bulletin.news. So Bulletin News came about because we had Google in, we had the Gemini team in to our building to attend a hack day. So we were on our kind of 3rd AI hack day where we were trying to work out how the company was going to use AI better. And I had been pitched a whole load of third-party AI tools. And everyone was saying, hey, it's going to revolutionize your newsroom. We're going to work so much more efficiently. You're going to change the whole business. So I was very excited. So I sent it out to a bunch of different people across the news floor and said, use them for a couple of weeks and come along to the hack day. And we'll talk about, which ones we should use and what do you want to move forward with. And so, we were working with Gemini on a couple of things and said, come along. Now, journalists, when they feel like they're being sold to, they can be very rude about what they're being sold. So it wasn't quite the hack day I had imagined, but people didn't like the tools that I had sent to them, suffice to say. So the day became actually a session where we just spoke about what would we like to do? If AI could do anything, what would you want it to be doing? What problem do you have? What do you think your audience wants that you can't give your audience right now? And that was a much better day. So it wasn't the day we planned. And at the end of it, the Gemini team said, we can build some of that stuff and you can have it, but we just want to engage with a news organization on it. So we did that. And one of the things was to, everyone's spoken about summaries. I think summaries are so neglected. People think about summaries as just like something to sit at the top of an article, whatever. I mean, it's 12 years since we launched the iPaper, which was a whole new news product, paper print products that we launched, which was derived from the Independent, but was for people without so much time in their lives. And it's a smash success now. It's now owned by DMGT. It's a really successful product. So this is the mission of Bulletin. Its tagline is news for seriously busy people. Just because you don't have much time does not mean you just want to get kind of cheap, rubbish, whatever journalism. Just because you want it short doesn't mean you don't want it to be good and reliable. So we vouch for all the news we produce. We only point the AI at stuff that we've already approved. So that's the similarity with DeeperDive, actually. We don't ask it to go out onto the web and find a load of sources that we don't know everything about. We want to know the progeny of every single word on that page. And we want a human editor to sign it off. So everything's got a byline, which reporter did the original reporting. It's just in a great format if you haven't got much time. And we're seeing a huge result. We're seeing like 1/5 of the engagement on the site is now coming from this channel that we launched 2 months ago. So it's cool.
And are people scared that it's going to take their job, or what's that?
Well,
tell us more about how you really feel.
There were some questions about that. But the first thing we did was we hired a team to work on it, so we could give the answer, absolutely honestly. We're in the growth business. Like you guys have got, was it 10,000 people? Did you just say? We've got 300. So we are all about growth. Like we're not there to reduce the size. We're here to grow the Independent. So we hired a team, was our first step so job creation straight off the bat by embracing the AI tools, because it creates opportunity and it creates more. And it makes our team much more powerful and much more productive, much better. We can tell more stories to more people in more engaging ways. So that's a growth story to me.
Okay. So Jedi engines, let's hope this is a bit provocative. So Jedi engines are the new walled gardens. They're taking our content. We're not getting paid. They're not selling traffic. Some are lucky enough to get paid. New York Times and Amazon just announced a big deal. Who knows what that means for the New York Times, but that was announced. Some blocked them, and some sued them. Disney, Mid Journey was just discussed last week. So I'm curious, in this world of, this new, we've seen this before, Facebook has done things and Google has, we've been through this enough times. I'm curious, how are we training the engines that are there to replace us? Should we block them? What should smaller publishers do? I mean, USA Today has millions of people every single day coming to USA Today. What do smaller publishers do? Like, where is it going? I have so many questions, but like, what's your thoughts around how do we interact with those Gen AI engines, and what do smaller publishers do where they don't get that direct distribution? What's the future of the open web?
Yeah, it's a very hard question to answer. I mean, it seems to me that if you're a smaller publisher, for small publishers out there, if they're just going to block everything, I'm not sure where that leads. Because at what point does that AI company become so desperate for that particular small publisher's content that they think, no, we're going to have access to that. If they've got access to everything else, if they've done deals with so many big publishers now, so many big organizations now, I'm not sure how they would play that hand. But one thing I definitely come back to is Richard Gingras, who for years has been the kind of top guy in thinking about news at Google, who left recently. On his way out, he did an interview, and I'm going to horribly misquote him here, not deliberately, but because it was a few weeks since I read the article. But he said words to the effect of, when he was asked about, the payments and the AI companies, he said, like, getting a check is not a business plan for the future. Like, that's not the answer. Like, it's nice to have, of course it is, but it's not like the full answer for forevermore. And I think using it, like using the technology. So for the independent, hey, we've created a whole new news brand. I think Bulletin News could be huge and will be huge. We're launching an app for it next month. It's on a really upward trajectory. That to me is more important than the check. I'm not saying I wouldn't like a check, but that's not everything, The industry is full of discussion about who's got a check, who's suing who's lawyering up. Yeah, I get that. It's very dramatic. It's not the full picture.
I agree with you.
Yeah, I agree. A check would be nice, but we don't have it either, and we're not counting on it. And everything we do, and I'll get to smaller publishers in a second, but everything we do is, including our launch last week with you on DeeperDive, is creating. We're doing everything we can to create the audience coming directly to us, or coming to us from other sources that we trust and to come to us. So we don't care if people link to us from ChatGPT or from Google. Our growth, what we really want is an end result where people are on our site because they care about our content and they know that's where they can get it. That's where sometimes the unlicensed use of our content hurts the strategy a little bit, because if you can get it somewhere else, that's unfortunate. But our strategy is really designed around our business model on our platform, regardless of whether we ever get a check or not from the AI companies. But small publishers, I think it's a very, very, very difficult path. And I don't think even a check that would be so small from AI companies would do the trick. I think in the digital ecosystem, I think you really need scale. And I think small publishers on standalone basis just don't have that. And when I was the CEO of New Media Investment Group, prior to we bought Gannett, we were maybe the third or fourth largest publisher in the US, and we knew we didn't have scale. We bought Gannett because we needed scale in the digital ecosystem. So I think my advice to small publishers would be to partner up, even if you don't want to sell, but partner up with publishers like Gannett, where you can really become part of their network and utilize their scale.
I would agree, and I would think, as you were saying that about scale, I was thinking of the importance of trust and differentiation. So we ain't going to be the biggest, but we can be the most trusted.
Yeah.
We can have something that you can't find easily elsewhere. And if you haven't got that, whether you're a massive publisher or a tiny publisher, if you haven't got something that can't be found really easily elsewhere, I think that's a challenge.
I totally agree. I mean, that's how we're trying to create a platform where people come to us, and a big part of that is it's trusted, reliable, accurate information.
And even, I mean, everyone's played that game, haven't they, of trying to find the hallucination or trying to find the mistake that an AI engine makes, and everyone pounces on it when they see it. Even if there's just that suggestion, that 1% of a 1% in the back of your mind, am I getting this right? Is the nuance of this right on a complicated subject that means something to the audience? Then there's a case for publishers, because we're responsible for what you get. Let's talk a little bit about DeeperDive then.
I didn't want to
because I'm going to bring it up now because
think about Taboola.
Because the first thing that our editorial team did was they tried to break it. Just like they did all those other things that I'd sent around, by the way, before the hack day. They immediately got their hands on it and like, right, let's make this say something stupid. Let's make this do something wrong. And they couldn't do it. And that's why we rolled out so quickly. So they're so impressed at the moment because they've tried to ask all the questions on really difficult subjects where it could put a foot wrong. And that would be, because obviously we have to kind of check it. We have to be confident in the implementation. So we have to do that. And it's because it does the same thing that we did with our own implementation of AI. It looks at our stuff. So it doesn't go around the whole web to try and find everybody's answer to that one question. It just finds our answer to that one question. So a totally different principle.
So now that you brought Taboola DeeperDive up, and I would hate to do it myself, so thank you for this. For those who may not know, it's an AI layer that allows consumers to ask questions on sites they trust and love. Another fun story. So last Thursday, I was in CBC Fest Money, and I gave the example that for the life of me, I would never travel again unless I go to USA Today travel section. And I had a conversation with DeeperDive about my upcoming trip, because if I don't do it, I may come back with a divorce, because my wife will be like, how did you get this place? Did you talk to Perplexity? What is this bullshit? You know, like, did you not go to the travel section of USA Today and converse about our trip? So, so that was live national television. And then the next day, I dropped the kids in school, and the teachers were like, DeeperDive, USA Today, then defendant, good job. So that was a great moment of celebration for me. The teacher, because at the end of the day, what you really want is the teachers to be impressed with what you do. Then it all translates into happiness. But back to this panel. So when you think about AI and DeeperDive and publishers, and if you could tell me what you wish I did, like if you could choose one thing that you wish we worked on the Taboola side so that it moves something that you care about, what would that be?
That's a big question. I think make the microphone work would be a good start.
Try this. Sorry.
It's cutting out. Is that back on? That's back on.
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah, cool. I think I'm just low battery. Yeah, cool. I would say the thing I appreciate is the user journey. Is actually what I appreciate with the stuff we're doing with Taboola, which comes back to something you were saying, Mike, as well. Is once someone's arrived, let them look around, let them stay, let them dwell, and the follow-up questions, for instance, in DeeperDive are important because everyone's got their nav bar. Everyone really cares about the nav bar. No one's ever really used a nav bar because no one likes a filing system. And kind of reading news via a filing system is just not that much fun. So if this tool gives us something that helps people go deep into subjects, yeah, that would be great. I mean, one of the things we built when we built Bulletin is a referral unit at the bottom of it to go into the original article that the AI drew from when it was summarizing. And that's got a really that's the highest click-through rate we've ever had on our site, because it's just that you understand what you're getting and there's a reason to go and find more. So the idea of Bulletin is you can graze across it, and then it's up to you when you want to slow down and go deep into a subject. So you might not want that one, not want that one, not want that one. That's what I want to read more about. And I can see the same features and the same kind of curiosity journey in DeeperDive. Like, I'm going to ask one question and then I get a follow-up question and another follow-up question, and I can dive deeper. So that's the thing I appreciate most at the moment.
I think, okay. I think the thing that, my Santa Claus wish list would be, Taboola is our technology partner that really shows Gannett the path on how to utilize data in every aspect of your business where you can grow to actually grow. I mean, we're not technology experts, and it's obvious to us now we're not really experts in leveraging data. You know, we're experts in creating content and maybe marketing and things like that. And so utilizing a partnership with Taboola to really help us grow from a product standpoint as we understand and utilize that data is a key component, I think, of a long-term partnership between Gannett and Taboola. And I do think DeeperDive is a great example of how we do that together. And DeeperDive is going to allow us to really then start to understand, okay, what do consumers want to know? And based on what they want to know, can we do more of that content? And we can kind of, figure out too what they don't want to know and what they don't care about. And how do we do less of that? So I do think there are so many ways to leverage data and to create a more personalized experience and to create a better content strategy that turns us into much more of a growth-oriented company. We can't do it alone. We don't have the expertise. So a partnership with Taboola is huge for us in that regard.
It goes both ways. And I mean, it's been a great, time launching this and working with the teams and getting feedback. And I am excited about, a future in which, speaking about AI and agentic AI and things, can you imagine that you go to a publisher, if we continue with my Cancun travel example, then I ask a question and then use it today, DeeperDive is doing some research and then coming back to me with some ideas and links and pictures and videos of where I'm supposed to go. And then maybe DeeperDive also offers me to buy some packages directly from Usain today. Go see the pyramids with your kids. Here's your credit card. Go and do it because you trust me. And trust came up a lot of times on today's call. And I think in a very hectic world, trust is a very important currency. And I wish and hope that our children will have a very strong, journalistic future so they can have somebody they trust versus be swallowed by TikTok and OpenAI and those evil people.
Yeah.
So for my last optimistic question, looking ahead into the future, this is a wrap-up question. If I was ever able to convince you to do this again with me, right here, next year, what do you think we're going to be talking about? What's going to be the biggest change that you either hope happens or you think might just happen? A year from now, cheap rosé, the whole thing again. What would we be talking about?
I definitely think, I mentioned earlier, we've got two responses we're going hard at in the face of AI. So one is Bulletin and the other was Independent Studio, which is our kind of personality driven, our talent driven side of the business. I think that's going to be massive. I think that other news organizations are starting that as well. But I think we're going to be looking at how humans can leverage in themselves to be more trusted. Did you catch that? My mic cut out too much there. You got it.
I got it.
But just, a great response to AI is to be human, because people trust people. If you can receive someone's newsletter, if you follow their podcast, if you watch them on YouTube, if you see them out reporting, if you see them in the field, you're going to trust that human being and you're going to want to follow that human being. So I definitely think that's a great opportunity for publishers to put their talent right front and center.
Yeah, I would say I still think we'll be talking about AI at this conference next year. And I think from last year to this year, it's gone from 100,000 feeds and everybody just starting to really even think about what AI was and how can it be used in my business. And this year, so many of the meetings and discussion around here is actually very specific, creative things where people are using AI in their business. I think going forward, the personnel side of this is one of the biggest issues over the next 12 months is how do you, especially companies with 10,000 employees, is how do you get that part of the business right? How do you deploy AI? How do you know the right people to hire? How do you train? How do you retain? How do you make your business from a cultural and employee standpoint as efficient as you can in terms of the adoption of AI? And I think that's the next frontier for a lot of our big companies. And several lunches and meetings I've been at here already this week, top people at big companies are talking about that. Like, I don't I can't get anybody in the company to really, they're scared of it. They don't want to embrace it. They think it's going to take away my job. And so we're all in the hospitality business and the media business. Your consumers are first and you have to take care of them. And if you have to have employees who really understand that part of it first before they can present well to the customers. So I think that's an immediate next big frontier for us is how do we internalize it with our teams, with our inside our culture.
All right. Thank you both for so many things. At Taboola, we always say that, true innovation is, you can copy anything. You can copy someone's website or someone's, presentation or, their pitch, but you can never copy a group of people that have a mutual passion and empathy for each other and decide to go at it full throttle. So, from time to time, especially as we have this fear, you have to pitch yourself that this is all real. And I feel very lucky to be walking this journey with both of you and your companies. So thank you for giving us a chance. And I promise we will work extremely hard to be first and make a big impact. So the rest of the world gets so jealous that, we're doing this together. And at the same time, we'll get Gen AI engines to pay us, send us traffic. We'll sue them, we'll fight them, all the things we have to do. And until then, stick around, get a drink. Thanks a lot for coming in. Thank you.